Vernikoff.
Present.
Williams.
Present.
Juan.
Present.
Yeager.
Here.
Borelli. Thank you. Carr. Powers.
Present.
Speaker Adams.
Present.
Thank you. We'll now have today's invocation, which will be delivered by Swami Yuktatmananda of the Ramakrishna Center of New York, located at 17 East 94th Street in Manhattan in my district. Welcome.
This is an invocation from the Vedas, the primary scripture of Hinduism. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Supreme Reality protect us all. May the Supreme Reality nourish us all. May our studies and deliberations be fruitful and beneficial. May there be no hatred among us, but only love and goodwill. Om. Peace, peace, peace be unto us. Peace be unto all. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us here today, and welcome to City Hall. I want to now call on Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan to spread the invocation on the record.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you, Majority Leader, and thank you, Swamiji. Your message of peace is both timeless and urgent to the moment we are all living through now. On a personal note, I've attended services at the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center for many years. As a child, when I attended college, to law school, and afterwards working as a lawyer. Whenever I needed grounding and renewal, I found it in the Vedanta Hindu tradition taught at the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center. With Deepavali or Diwali starting soon, and as the first council member who celebrates this holiday personally, I find it fitting to open today's stated meeting with Swami Yuktatmananda's invocation. It is especially moving to me to be in this position because it was the Ramakrishna Order of Monks that also delivered the invocation at my college commencement at Cooper Union, coming full circle years later. Vedanta Hinduism teaches us that we are all one, that just as so many streams flow towards the same ocean, we are all on our different paths towards the same truth. As many faiths, as many paths. These words inspire us to pursue our own paths towards a world we believe in, a shared sense of humanity, and a shared peace. Once again, I would like to thank Swami Yuktatmananda for being here today, and I make a motion for unanimous consent to spread the invocation in full upon the record.
Thank you, Councilmember. We'll now have the adoption of the minutes by City Councilmember Rita Joseph.
Motion that the minutes of the stated meetings of October 5th, 2023 and October 19, 2023 be adopted as printed.
Thank you. We'll have messages and papers from the mayor.
None.
Communication from city, county, and borough offices.
M180 DOE 5-year capital plan.
Received, ordered, printed, and filed.
Petitions and communications.
None.
Land use call-ups.
None.
Thank you. We're now here from Speaker Adrian Adams.
Thank you, Majority Leader, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to begin today by acknowledging the loss of a trailblazing leader in the movement for reproductive freedom, Andrea Miller, from the National Institute of Reproductive Health. Andrea was one of our nation's fiercest advocates who committed her life to advancing the rights and safety of women and birthing people across the country. Her tireless work has saved lives, and I'm especially proud of working alongside her to expand municipal funding for access to abortion care in New York City. We will continue to uplift Andrea's legacy and advance reproductive health and freedom through our collective work. My thoughts are with her family, friends, and loved ones. We're also mourning the death of New Yorkers who were recently killed by preventable traffic violence. The loss of 7-year-old Kamai Hughes in Councilmember Crystal Hudson's district was heart-wrenching. As a mother and grandmother, the thought of losing your child is unimaginable, and I cannot fathom the pain that Kamai's family is feeling at this moment. We must do more to prevent traffic fatalities and injuries and ensure New Yorkers who are impacted can heal from the trauma of these horrifying incidents. Christina Naprawa's death in Councilmember Joanne Ariella's district was also a heartbreaking tragedy that never should have happened. Christina served our city with dedication for nearly 13 years as a school crossing guard, keeping our students, families, and pedestrians safe. I'm keeping her family and loved ones in my prayers. And as a city, and especially in my own community in Southeast Queens, we are still grieving the death of Jasmeer Singh, a respected member of our Sikh community, a beloved father, and a devoted husband. My heart is with his family and community as we come together to heal from his killing. These past weeks of devastating violence in Israel and Palestine have brought immense grief to our doorstep, shrouding our communities in despair. My heart is heavy, and I mourn with New Yorkers who have lost loved ones in the violence, and the many more who wait in anticipation to hear that their loved ones are safe. Today, I am saddened because our greatest fears have begun to materialize with increasing violence, division, and hatred. We must not allow this to overcome us and instead join together in calling for peace. The targeted attacks on civilians in Israel by Hamas nearly a month ago inflicted violence on thousands in a devastating and horrific way, with over 1,400 people reported killed. We continue to urge and pray for the safe return of kidnapped civilians back to their loved ones. Since the violence began, it is reported that over 8,000 people in Gaza have been killed, with entire neighborhoods and refugee camps devastated. This is all tragic, and we must never accept or tolerate this violence. I mourn the killing of all civilians. We must insist that peace is possible and is what can truly deliver safety and security for all people, and we must commit ourselves to working towards it. This is about preserving our humanity and protecting the right of all people to access safety. We cannot allow civilians, elders, children, and families to pay the price of war with their lives. We must protect and preserve human life. Violence and war are devastating, creating lasting harm for those impacted and often perpetuating cycles of trauma and more violence. I know this from my own family's history, just as so many others right here in this room and millions more across our nation do also. Our moral obligation to protect innocent life must transcend all boundaries and differences. Many New Yorkers have strong ties to the region, and when they think of Israel and Palestine, they think first of their family and friends, whether they're safe and whether they will see each other again. These connections engender both pain and passion that is deeply personal, and for many, these feelings are charged by generational trauma and violence. Today, friends, family, and colleagues who might normally see eye to eye on issues now find themselves holding differing opinions. As Americans, we always protect and encourage freedom of speech, and our differences make us stronger. We must remain committed to preserving these principles and at the same time be vigilant in preventing our differences from being exploited or transformed into hate. While we all have the right to express our views, this should never come at the expense of undermining our respect for one another's humanity. There is no place for hate or promoting hatred, discrimination, and violence against any group. Rising tensions of late have led to an increase in anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other forms of hate here in New York and elsewhere. This leaves us all less safe because we are only as safe as the most vulnerable among us. We've seen how hate can lead to violence. We cannot allow it to take hold and spread any further. I want to take a moment now to address our Jewish, Muslim, and other New Yorkers who have been targeted by hate, and to those who have felt unsafe and afraid to be in their own skin. You belong right here in New York City. This is your home. And while we may hold differing opinions, we must remember our shared humanity and pursue meaningful dialogue and understanding despite our differences, because empathy and open conversation is what makes peace possible. Life is precious. What unites us, our commitment to preserving humanity and protecting life, is far greater than what divides us. As we navigate our grief and our trauma, we must allow what we share rather than what separates us to guide our way forward. We must hold space for each other's pain and make room for our collective healing. And by working together and committing ourselves to peace, we can ensure a reality where everyone gets to live safely, with dignity, and with security. November is Puerto Rican Heritage Month. Okay. Wepa! I want to honor the many contributions and accomplishments of our Puerto Rican communities who helped shape our cities into what it is today. It's important that we acknowledge these continuing contributions, not just this month, but every day. November is also National Native American Heritage Month, when we uplift the history and cultures of indigenous peoples. It's critical that we recognize that we are currently in the homeland of the Lenape. And as a city and country, we must commit to meeting the needs of our indigenous communities and confronting the disparities they continue to face. I want to also acknowledge November as National Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month. This disease affects more than 6 million Americans, so it is critical that we recognize them and all families and caregivers who support their well-being. Thank you to our Committee Chair on Aging, Councilmember Crystal Hudson, and all of our members for all that you do to advance the care for older adults in our city. On November 11th, we will be observing Veterans Day, a meaningful day for all of us, especially veterans and families of those who have served in the armed forces. My father, my father-in-law, and my husband all served in the United States Air Force, so this is a personally important day for my own family. Yesterday, I joined Council members Linda Lee, Robert Holden, Mercedes Narcisse, and Eric Dinowitz, as well as Public Advocate Jamani Williams, to announce new legislation they're sponsoring that focuses on services for our veterans as the second part of the Council's mental health roadmap. I thank all of our veterans for their service and sacrifice. Have a safe and meaningful Veterans Day and National Veterans and Military Families Month. And on November 12th, New Yorkers across our city will be celebrating Diwali. The Festival of Lights is a significant celebration for our Hindu, Sikh, and Jain communities. I look forward to celebrating Diwali in the coming weeks. I hope everyone has a festive Diwali. Next, I want to wish a happy birthday to Councilmember Lynn Schulman, whose birthday is coming up in 2 days. Have a great birthday! And colleagues, please don't forget to fall back this weekend and set your clocks back 1 hour for daylight savings time. Yeah, you get to sleep that extra hours. Yes? Oswald Felice has a birthday coming up. I'll say we missed your birthday, but I did text you, wish you happy birthday, Oswald. Now, finally, I want to remind all New Yorkers that early voting is underway and runs through Sunday, November 5th. And Election Day, of course, is Tuesday, November 7th. Your vote is your voice, so I encourage New Yorkers to get out and vote. Now let's get to our stated agenda. First, we'll vote on the following finance items. Introduction 1208, sponsored by Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala, would extend the expiration date of the tax on hotel room occupancy from December 1st, 2023 to December 1st, 2027. The council first increased the tax to 5.875% in 2008 and extended it several times. It is estimated that extending it beyond November 30th, 2023 would generate approximately $50 million in this current fiscal year and nearly $100 million in the next fiscal year. There is also a transparency resolution approving new designations and changes of certain organizations receiving funding in the expense budget. Next, we will be voting on the following land use items. South Richmond zoning relief, an application by the Department of City Planning to modify certain provisions of the special South Richmond Development District, which was created in 1975 to manage growth and preserve the natural landscape of the area. This text amendment will streamline the approval process for residents who seek lot subdivisions, tree removal, and topographic modifications on their property. The council is modifying the application to ensure that known development projects in Minority Leader Borelli's district are not negatively impacted by this change. 703 Myrtle Avenue rezoning, an application to facilitate a new 8-story mixed-use building with 54 housing units, commercial ground floor, and automobile and bicycle parking spaces in Councilmember Ressler's district. The council is modifying the application to strike MIH option 2 and add the deep affordability option. Today, we will vote on the following resolutions. Resolution 243A, sponsored by Councilmember Julie Menin, calls upon the New York State Legislature to pass and the Governor to sign S.5256, A.7196, which would prohibit the use of a confession of judgment in business loans. Thank you to staff, Nicole Kata, Rebecca Barilla, Jessica Boulay, David Seitzer, and Rachel Cordero. Resolution 296A, sponsored by Councilmember Althea Stevens, calls upon the Governor to sign S.4266A, A.5088A, which passed several months ago and establishes a task force on missing women and girls who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Each year, tens of thousands of Black girls and women go missing. In fact, they make up a disproportionate percentage of missing people, but routinely get far less attention. This is an injustice that we have a responsibility to address, ensuring Black women and girls are equally protected. Thank you to our staff members, William Diori, Jessica Boulay, David Seitzler, and Rachel Cordero. We will also vote on the following pieces of legislation. Introduction 1083A, sponsored by Small Business Committee Chair Julie Menin, would authorize the mayor to establish the Office of Nightlife within the Department of Small Business Services. Currently, the office is housed in the Office of Media and Entertainment. ONL and SBS have previously collaborated to support small businesses in the nightlife sector. Thank you once again to staff, Nicole Kata, Rebecca Barilla, Jessica Boulay, David Seitzo, and Rachel Cordero. Introduction 845A, also sponsored by Chair Menin, would reduce penalties, allow opportunities to cure certain violations, and eliminate certain requirements for commercial establishments. While regulations put forth by city agencies provide protection for consumers, workers, and surrounding communities, in some cases, responding to violations can significantly affect the financial status of a small business. Reducing penalties and minimizing their impacts on small businesses are critical to helping them succeed. Thank you once again to our staff members, Nicole Kata, Rebecca Barilla, Jessica Boulay, David Seltzer, and Rachel Cordero. Introduction 816, sponsored by Councilmember Lincoln Ressler, would add Tisha B'Av to the list of holidays for which the alternate side parking rules are suspended. This law would take effect immediately. Thank you to staff members Nell Beekman, Mark Chen, Audrey San, and Bradley Reed. Introduction 1192, sponsored by Transportation and Infrastructure Committee Chair Majority Whip Sylvina Brooks Powers, would authorize physicians, assistants, and nurse practitioners to conduct medical exams of taxi drivers' license applicants. Currently, the law requires taxi drivers to submit to a physical examination by a pre-approved physician before being issued a license. This bill would allow drivers to obtain medical approval from nurse practitioners and physician's assistants as well. This would streamline the application process and reduce the burden on drivers who often face long waiting periods waiting for the approval of their licenses. Excuse me. Thank you to staff members Mark Chen, Audrey Sun, and Bradley Reed. Introduction 1191, also sponsored by Majority Whip Brooks Powers, would change the duration of taxicab licenses from 1 year to 2 years. The duration of these licenses was changed by Local Law 110 of 2020 to 1 year, along with other licensing changes. However, this bill would return taxicab licenses to their original 2-year duration. Thank you to staff members Mark Chen, Audrey Sun, and Bradley Reed. Introduction 569B, sponsored by Immigration Committee Chair Shahana Hanif, would require the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, in coordination with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, the New York City Commission on Human Rights, and community and labor organizations to create and publish a Workers' Bill of Rights that would contain information on the rights and protection under federal, state, and local laws that apply to all workers in the city, regardless of immigration status. Employers would be required to provide the information to employees and posted in an accessible and visible workplace location. MOYA, in coordination with DCWP and community and labor groups, would be required to conduct outreach to workers in the city to raise awareness of these rights. The outreach would also include information regarding temporary protected status. It's important that our city empowers our immigrant communities and workers with the knowledge about their rights so they can be protected from actions that impact their health, safety, and well-being. Thank you to our staff members Jessica Foom, Nicole Kata, Desare Ganapathy, Rebecca Barilla, Bob Calandra, and Rachel Cordero. Introduction 687A, sponsored by Majority Leader Keith Powers, would require chain restaurants with 15 or more locations to post added sugar icons and factual warning statements on menu items that exceed a specific level of added sugars as determined by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration or another amount specified by the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Eating or drinking too much sugar can elevate a person's risk of type 2 diabetes, which is the 7th leading cause of death in the United States and leads to other negative health outcomes like liver disease and dental issues. Research has shown that sugar amount disclosures can help educate customers on sugar intake and at times convince them to choose healthier options. Thank you to our staff members, Sarah Suker, Trevor Lipman, and Chris Pepe. And finally, Introduction 968, sponsored by Councilmember Mercedes Narcisse, would require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, in consultation with New York City Health and Hospitals, to create guidance on educating medical professionals and the public on the detection of the sickle cell trait through pre- and post-conception genetic screening, as well as on the management and treatment of sickle cell disease. This bill would also require that pre- and post-conception genetic screening for the sickle cell trait be offered to those who fall into an at-risk population or for whom such screenings are otherwise medically recommended. It's important to note that sickle cell disease disproportionately affects people of African descent, with about 1 in 13 Black babies born with the sickle cell trait in the United States. Due to the racial disparities in medical treatment and access to health care, the impact of this disease on individuals diagnosed and their families has remained a major issue of structural racism. Just this week, we learned that the FDA is moving towards approval of a potential cure for this illness. So I am so excited about how these advances and our legislation will improve the lives of New Yorkers who have sickle cell disease. So many have suffered due to a lack of adequate care and investments in treatment research for far too long. Thank you to our staff members, Sarah Suker, Chris Pepe, and Manur Butt. Thank you for your attention, colleagues, and now I turn it back over to our Majority Leader.
Thank you. We're now going to move to the report of special committees. Oh, thank you. Sorry. First, we're going to move into discussion of general orders. We will start with Councilmember Narcisse.
Good afternoon, and thank you,
Majority Leader, good afternoon, Madam Speaker, and thank you to all my colleagues. Today, as we prepare to vote to intro 968B, I want to share a personal insight. Not only I am a council member and a nurse, but also I'm someone who carries the sickle cell trait. This bill isn't just policy to me, it's profoundly personal. In my nursing career, I have witnessed the pain and the challenges that sickle cell disease brings to individuals and their families. I have seen the urgency for early detection, proper education, and unbiased care. My own genetic link to this condition has made me acutely aware of its implication and the need for greater awareness and action. As a proud sponsor of this bill, I introduced that bill with both knowledge and a healthcare professional and empathy of someone who understands the implication of the sickle cell disease. This is a bill that will challenge lives, that will change lives and help bring to the forefront the pressing needs of many New Yorkers who live with sickle cell disease throughout their lives. This legislation is a testament to our council commitment to health, to education, and to the future where no one feels marginalized because of their genetic makeup. Please allow me to thank some folks that helped me to get to this point. Sarah Suker, Legislative Counsel, Yadira Navarro, and Tristan Masley Ellis from the New York Blood Center, Kazam Wanathan, Miran Blackwood, and Sharon Lee Devonish, and of One Brooklyn Health Comprehensive Sickle Cell Programs of Brooklyn and Interfit Medical Center, Ginger Davis from the Sickle Cell Thalassemia Patient Network, and Milton D. Wade, who lost his son to sickle cell disease, Jeremy John, Faiza Ali, of course Jeff, my Chief of Staff, Syed Joseph, and Deputy Chief of Staff, and of course my friend Sylvina Brute. I urge my fellow council members to vote in the favor of this bill. Let's demonstrate our unwavering commitment to all New Yorkers, ensuring they receive the care and the support they rightly deserve. Happy Veteran Day, happy Diwali, vote for this, and then I would like to have permission to vote on the items for today. And for that, I vote aye.
Councilor, we don't have any land use items today, so we have to wait until the actual roll call, but we can move you to the front. Thanks.
All that, I just want to be.
All right, Councilmember, be okay. We're moving to Councilmember Hanif, and then we'll go to Councilmember Ressler.
Thank you. I want to thank Speaker Adams for including my bill, Intro 569, on today's agenda. Immigrant workers are protected by the minimum wage, overtime, paid sick leave, fair scheduling, and the right to form a union. However, many immigrant workers are unaware of these protections, which leaves them particularly vulnerable to wage theft and other forms of exploitation. Intro 569 will combat this dynamic by consolidating relevant information into one convenient document called the Immigrant Workers Bill of Rights and ensure that this document reaches workers in the languages they speak. Employers will be required to provide a copy of the Immigrant Worker Bill of Rights to employees on their first day on the job and post it in a conspicuous location in the workplace. MOYA, in coordination with DCWP, and community and labor groups would also be required to conduct outreach to workers, including a robust advertising campaign through digital and print media, Subway, as well as Link NYC kiosks. Thank you to the 19 members who sponsored this bill, especially Councilmember Alexa Aviles, who introduced it alongside me. I want to thank my team, Alex Liao, Nora Brickner, Michael Whitesides, and Moose Lamia for their hard work on this bill. I also want to thank Central staff members Nicole Cata, Rachel Cordero, Jessica Fong, Rebecca Barilla, Florentine Cabore, and Nia Harris. Lastly, I need to thank the advocates for their collaboration on this bill, the Legal Aid Society, the Consortium for Worker Education, and especially the New York City Central Labor Council, who are particularly critical to getting this across the finish line. Lucia and Cairo, we owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Councilmember Ressler, followed by Councilmember Brooks Powers, followed by Councilmember Bennett.
Great. Thank you very much, Majority Leader. I'd like to thank Speaker Adams and Chair Brooks Powers for helping to shepherd Intro 816 over the finish line. This bill lifts alternate side parking restrictions on the most mournful day in the Jewish calendar. During Tisha B'Av, observant Jews are at shul from early in the morning until late at night. They are praying, they are fasting, and they don't need to be worrying about moving their car. And I want to just especially shout out Councilmember Yeager, who's been a real partner on this bill. This was originally introduced by then Councilmember David Greenfield, his predecessor, some 10 plus years ago, and I'm very pleased we were able to get it over the finish line. I'd like to thank everyone who helped us on it, especially my legislative director, Molly Haley, and also just briefly, I'm very pleased that we're rezoning 703 Myrtle Avenue today. I'm proud that the 33rd Council District has had significantly more housing starts than any other council district in the city for the past 15 years, and 703 Myrtle will continue to contribute to that trend. The developer worked with me and my community to rethink their project, to modify the unit sizes, to actually meet the needs of our community, which has large families in the Bed-Stuy area, and reduce the number of one bedrooms and studios to accommodate the larger family sizes. This is a good project, and I'm really proud that we were able to get it done. And I just want to thank everyone who contributed to it, but most of all, Rabbi Niederman from United Jewish Organizations of Williamsburg and North Brooklyn, who helped shepherd the negotiations through with my office, and my Chief of Staff, Marianne Alexander, for her work on it. So thank you all for the support, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you. We'll now go to Councilmember Brooks Powers, followed by Councilmember Menon.
Thank you. I am proud to sponsor 2 bills up for a vote today that will advance equity citywide, Introductions 1191 and 1192. The first of these bills, 1191, will allow taxi drivers to renew their licenses every 2 years rather than every year. This helps reduce the regulatory burden on drivers who will not have to renew their licenses annually. Intro 1192 will allow individuals seeking a taxi license to secure medical approval from TLC-approved nurse practitioners or physician assistants in addition to physicians. This too will reduce the burden on drivers who will be afforded more options when seeking medical clearance as part of the application process. This legislation also reflects the national trend towards healthcare visits conducted by nurse practitioners and physician assistants rather than physicians. I look forward to continuing to work in the Committee on Transportation Infrastructure to uplift New York's TLC drivers, and I urge my colleagues to vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we hear from Councilmember Menon.
Thank you so much. I'm proud today that the council is going to be voting on 2 of my bills, and I first of all want to thank the Speaker for her great support of this. The first bill is Intro 845, which reduces penalties on small businesses. Specifically, it reduces fines in 30 different regulations that are currently affecting small businesses across multiple different city agencies. These small businesses are being socked with thousands of dollars of fines, and it's really hurting them. This bill will now allow small businesses to cure the violation first before receiving a fine. The second bill, Intro 1083, transfers the Office of Nightlife from the Office of Media and Entertainment, also known as MOME, to the Department of Small Business Services. When I was MOME commissioner, we created the Office of Nightlife. It made sense to have the office housed there in its inception, but it no longer makes sense because we really need to support these 25,000 nightlife businesses, and we can best do that by transferring the office to SBS, which provides support for these small businesses. I want to thank Nicole Kata, Jessica Boulay, Rebecca Barilla, Rachel Cordero for their work, and from my team, Jonathan Shutt and Brandon Jordan. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else signed up to speak? Seeing none, now we'll move into the report of special committees.
None.
Report of standing committees.
Report of the Committee on Finance, Intro 1208, Hotel Occupancy Tax.
Coupled on general orders.
Preconsidered Reso 834, Transparency Resolution.
Coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Health, Intro 687A, Sugar Notifications in Chain Restaurants.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Intro 968B, Guidance on Sickle Cell Disease.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Immigration, Intro 569B, Workers' Bill of Rights.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Small Business, Intro 845A, Requirements for Commercial Establishments.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Intro 1083A, Office of Nightlife.
Amended and coupled on general orders.
Report of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Intro 816, Alternate Side Parking Regulations.
Coupled on general orders.
Intros 1191 and 1192, Taxi Cab Licenses and Taxi Driver Medical Exams.
Coupled on general orders.
General Orders Calendar, LU 263 and Reso 841, South Richmond Zoning Relief.
Coupled on general orders.
LU 275 and Reso 842 and LU 276 and Reso 843, 703 Myrtle Avenue rezoning.
Coupled on general orders.
Resolution appointing various persons, Commissioner of Deeds.
Coupled on general orders, I now ask that the clerk take a roll call vote on all of the items coupled on today's general orders calendar.
Narcisse.
Permission to vote onto this agenda, and I apologize. And I vote aye, and congratulations to all my colleagues. Thank you.
Ong.
Aye.
Barron.
It is with great trepidation that I request unanimous consent again to vote on all general order items. I vote no on LU 275 and 276 because 75% of it is market and only 25% is affordable, and the accompanying resolutions, and I vote aye on all the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Abreu.
Aye.
Ariola.
I'd like to disclose that on the transparency resolution, there are line items for sanitation, and my son works for sanitation. I am aye on all except for intros 1208, 569B, 687A, for which I am no. Thank you.
Thank you. Aviles.
Aye on all.
Ayala.
Aye.
Botcher.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Brewer.
Aye.
Thank you. Brooks Powers.
Aye on all, and congratulations to my colleagues passing legislation today.
Caban.
Aye.
Carr.
I'd like to disclose on the record that CUNY is being funded in the transparency resolution today, and my husband is a student at CUNY, and I'll be voting no on introductions 569B, 687A, and 1208, and aye on the rest.
Thank you. De La Rosa.
Aye.
Dinowitz.
Aye.
Farias.
I vote aye on all.
Feliz.
Aye.
Gennaro.
Aye.
Gutierrez.
Aye.
Hanif.
Aye.
Hanks.
I vote aye.
Holden.
Aye on all except for intros 1208 and 569B, of which I vote no.
Hudson.
Aye.
Joseph.
Aye.
Kagan.
I would like to disclose that my daughter is a CUNY student, and our transparency resolution give funding to CUNY. I'm voting no on introductions 1208, 569B, and 687A, and aye on everything else.
Krishnan.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye on all.
Lewis.
Permission to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
I vote aye on all, and congratulations to all those passing bills today. Colleagues, most of us that have districts that grapple with gun violence may understand and empathize with my remarks today. It's difficult to adequately put into words and describe how constituents in East Flatbush and my neighbors in Flatbush Gardens are feeling after the tragic death of Vladimir Murthrin, a 47-year-old hardworking school bus driver, husband and father, and his 27-year-old son, Chinwe Mood, both killed due to a noise complaint. The blatant disregard for Black lives is demoralizing because we went from saying don't shoot to I can't breathe, back to begging our neighbors not to kill us. Guns are suffocating Black communities, and we remain oppressed by these weapons and the evil that comes along with the mission and what these weapons represent. We have to change public perception that being Black in America is equivalent to a death sentence, which means we cannot say Black Lives Matter today and turn around to hurt our neighbors. The demented and shameful obsession with guns is a cultural disease prevalent in BIPOC communities, and we can no longer give lip service to addressing gun control. On behalf of District 45, I would like to send my condolences to Marie DeLilly and her family and the whole Flatbush Gardens community that is still grappling with this incident. I vote aye on all. Thanks.
Thank you. Marte.
Aye.
Mealy. Thank you. Menon.
Aye on all.
Moya.
I vote aye.
Nurse.
I vote aye.
Osei.
I vote aye.
Palladino.
I vote aye, except on intro 1208, 569B, and 687A.
Thank you. Wrestler.
Aye.
Richardson Jordan.
Aye.
Riley.
Aye.
Rivera.
I vote aye.
Salamanca.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Sanchez.
Aye on all.
Schulman.
Permission to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
I'm proud to be a sponsor of Intro 687A, which will enable people to make a decision about their sugar intake from big chains, and 968B on sickle cell disease. Yesterday, I was at the launch announcement of Healthy NYC, a new campaign to increase New Yorkers' life expectancy by 2030. It's unquestionable that these bills will help us move towards achieving those goals, and I vote aye on all.
Stevens.
Aye.
Velasquez.
Aye on all.
Vernikov.
Aye on all except no on intros 569B, 687A, and 1208. Thank you.
Williams.
Disclosing for the record that I'm a CUNY student, I vote aye on all.
Juan.
Aye on all.
Yeager.
May I be excused to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Rise briefly just to explain some of my no votes, but before I do, I want to very much appreciate gentleman Councilman Ressler for living the dream that was first proposed by my predecessor, David Greenfield. The adding of an additional holiday to a list that currently has 24 religious holidays on it, in which alternate side of the street parking rules are suspended, is a recognition of that this city is indeed a city for all. A list that includes holidays of all religions, all faiths. It really is another manner of welcoming, and I won't get into great detail on what Tisha B'Av is. I urge you to Google it. We're seeing a lot of that right now, and but I am very grateful to Councilman Ressler for this very wise bill. Very briefly, since we're talking about regulation, or at least I am, I'm voting no on introduction 687 and 589. I do not believe this is the environment to require businesses to have more rules, more regulations, and more fines for the Department of Consumer Affairs to go around writing tickets. They love doing that. I'd like them not to, and giving them another set of rules to enforce on businesses is not something that I would very much believe I was sent here to do. I'm voting no on introduction 1208. The reason I'm doing that is because This was a temporary tax enacted in 2008 that expired in 2011. It's been reinstated, extended. It's a temporary tax. It was always meant to be a temporary tax. It's a temporary tax that should not be continued. It hurts tourism. It makes hotel rooms more expensive. I know it's a little bang in the fisc of the city, but not every time that we see a tax do we have to say this is a good idea. Sometimes it's not. This one, I think we can afford and should be at least honest enough to say a temporary tax ought to mean that, especially if it has the word temporary in it. I vote aye on the remainder. Thank you very much.
Borelli.
A brief explanation, please.
Go ahead.
I just want to point out we're passing a rezoning of the South Richmond Special District, of which my whole district is encompassed in. My district and my neighborhood is very fortunate and blessed to have a lot of trees. We have the strongest tree rules in the city of New York. We have open space, we have preserved lands, and those are the reasons, as much as I tend to rant about trees, those are the reasons why so many people move to my part of the city. So this rezoning keeps the rules on the books to preserve the unique special characteristics and the natural environment of the South Shore of Staten Island. It just takes away the bureaucratic rules. It shouldn't require a city planning process to put a small extension on a house or build a deck or do some of the more mundane things that property owners do. And yet that's what was happening for many years. So this is literally seeing the forest for the trees and preserving the unique environmental characteristics without placing an extra burden on people. With that, I want to disclose that I am an employee of CUNY and we are funding that in this budget. And I vote aye on all except 569B, 687A, and 1208.
Powers.
I'm so grateful Councilmember did not use that a full 7-minute allotment given to him, but I vote aye on all.
Speaker Adams.
Aye on all.
All items on today's general order calendar adopted by a vote of 51 in the affirmative, 0 negative, and 0 abstentions, with the exception of land use items 275 and 276 and accompanying resolutions adopted by a vote of 50 in the affirmative, 1 negative, and 0 abstentions. Please throw him out. Please escort this gentleman out.
All right, we'll do it now, guys. Let's do it now. He's right.
Please remove the gentleman from the chamber. Thank you.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to resume reading the vote. Introduction. Land use items 275 and 276 and accompanying resolutions adopted by a vote of 50 in the affirmative, 1 negative, and 0 abstentions. Introduction 569B adopted by a vote of 43 in the affirmative, 8 negative, and 0 abstentions. Introduction 687A adopted by a vote of 44 in the affirmative, 7 negative, and 0 abstentions. And introduction 1208 adopted by a vote of 43 in the affirmative, 8 negative, and 0 abstentions. We will now move into the introduction and reading of bills.
All bills have been referred to committees as indicated on today's agenda.
Thank you. We'll now move into the discussion of today's resolutions. I'll call first on Councilmember Stevens.
Good afternoon, and today I'm deeply honored to be the lead sponsor of a resolution urging Governor to sign 296 that will establish Black, Indigenous women of color into law, a task force into law. This resolution is a vital step towards increasing attention to thousands of missing women of color across the state and the nation. By establishing a task force is dedicated to missing women of color, we will begin to rectify some of the injustices and disproportionate efforts to ensure the safe return of missing women of color. Let's be clear, this resolution is not just a piece of legislation, it is a call of action to ensure that no one, regardless of their race or background, is left behind. It is a collective response to protect and serve as all the members of our community, especially our BIPOC women and those who are the most vulnerable in marginalized areas of the country. I'm happy that we are taking a significant step towards acknowledging the plight of missing women. Special thanks to Don Rowe, who's the founder of Girlvile, a nonprofit organization that was deeply involved in raising the alarms around this issue. Let us stand together and united to make it known that we will not rest until the silent epidemic is unsilenced and missing women and girls of color are given the attention and care they are rightfully deserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else signed up to speak on today's resolutions, we'll now move into we'll now have a voice vote on today's resolutions. If you wish to vote against or abstain from any of the resolutions, please notify the Legislative Documents Unit by email or by approaching the dais. I'll now read today's resolutions into the record. Proposed Resolution 243A calls upon the New York State Legislature to pass and the Governor to sign Senate Bill number 5256 and Assembly Bill number 7196 to prohibit the use of a confession of judgment in business loans. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Resolution 296A calls on the Governor to sign Senate Bill number 4266A and Assembly Bill number 5088A, which establishes a task force on missing women and girls who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We'll now move into today's general discussion. We will begin with Councilmember Hanif, followed by Councilmember Schulman.
Thank you. I'm proud to introduce Resolution 836 to designate a South Asian Heritage Month in New York City. Getting to do so alongside Councilmember Krishnan is a true pleasure as we share the joint distinction of being the first South Asian New York City Council members. I encourage my colleagues to sign on as sponsors. I also wanted to share that I'm proud to be wearing an ALE pin today alongside many of my colleagues. As a former council staffer, I know how hard our dedicated staff works, and I want to recognize them as they bargain for their contract. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to Councilmember Schulman, followed by Councilmember Riley.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Today I am introducing Intro 1248, which will require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to develop a 5-year population health agenda for New York City that can be renewed every 5 years and focuses on improving public health outcomes and addressing health disparities to increase life expectancy. This legislation comes at a critical point for New Yorkers because over the past few years, the life expectancy of our city has precipitously declined. It is a comprehensive plan that seeks to elevate our city's well-being in every aspect. The reasoning for the 5-year time period is the desire for a healthier New York to exist beyond our tenures in city government. Yesterday, the city launched Healthy NYC, a comprehensive campaign aimed at ensuring that every New Yorker has the opportunity to lead a longer, healthier life. This legislation will serve to codify the goals of Healthy NYC and mark a significant step forward in our commitment to the well-being of all New Yorkers. This legislation would not have been possible without the encouragement and support of City Council Speaker Adrian Adams, whose commitment to the health of New Yorkers has been inspiring and unwavering from day one. I encourage my colleagues to sign on to this important legislation, which will enhance the lives of all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you. And I move to Councilmember Riley and followed by Councilmember Palladino.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Today I ask for the support of 2 bills from my colleague. The first bill will promote accessibility by ensuring there's a process for outdoor summer basketball leagues to reserve rain site location for games. Basketball is a major part of New York City's vibrant culture, and it provides safe spaces for sportsmanship, growth, and development within our community. Well-known basketball leagues like Dyckman Park Summer League, Rutgers Park Tournament, Gersh Park, Hoops in the Sun, and District 12's own Granada Built to Win, Valley Basketball Tournament, and Gun Hill Basketball Tournament contributes to our city's legendary basketball culture. But they also create pathways to on-ground public safety and community engagement that our youth can relate to. Currently, adverse weather conditions and a lack of access to indoor facilities often leave local teams and leagues unable to function. Intro 1245 will call on the Department of Parks and Recreation to create a plan that connects basketball leagues with indoor courts and gyms for basketball games when the weather does not permit use of outdoor courts. The next bill is Intro 1246, which will require the Department of Small Business Services to create a pilot program to match our city's small businesses with social media content creators for assistance with marketing and advertisement. SBS will be required to engage the public to maximize outreach and create an application process to pair supportive content creators with small businesses. Not only is this program pivotal to boosting small businesses, but content creators will also be able to educate businesses, providing them with substantial marketing plans tailored to their needs and capabilities. And lastly, I would like to commend my colleague, Councilmember Narcisse, on the introduction of Intro 1242, requiring the New York City Department of Education to report on the number of students reporting to the Office of School Health with diagnosis of sickle cell disease or trait. I am proud to be a co-prime sponsor on this bill, which will ensure proper health care support and accommodations for affected students, as well as facilitate data-driven policy decisions. I would like to encourage my colleagues to support this bill. Thank you, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Reilly. We now go to Councilmember Palladino, followed by Councilmember Dinowitz.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm introducing Resolution 840, resolution calling on a New York City Department of Education to observe Veterans Day the Friday before November 11th if it falls on a Saturday, and a Monday after the 11th if it falls on a Sunday. This year, Veterans Day falls on a Saturday. Some agencies are observing Veterans Day on Friday, like we are here in City Council. Private schools are also observing on Friday, the 10th. The Department of Education is not observing Veterans Day since it is on a Saturday this year. Community members, teachers, parents, and students are expressing concerns about this. I actually want to give a shout out to MS 67. I have about 300 of your letters here about asking for that a day off. I am proposing that the DOE observe Veterans Day the Friday before November 11th, if it falls on a Saturday, and the Monday if it falls after the 11th, if it's on a Sunday. As a member of the Veterans Committee, I would hope that our students are also learning about the history and the importance of Veterans Day. These letters, I have to tell you, I can't believe that they're written by kids in the 6th and 7th and 8th grade. Their vocabulary, everything, the way they put it together is great. So again, a shout out to my kids in my district, 25 and 26, and I hope you consider signing on to Reso 840. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. And now go to Councilmember Dinowitz, followed by Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Well, first, for the first time, because of this council, we can say Happy Veteran Appreciation Month. So today, in collaboration with Council Members Linda Lee and Mercedes Narcisse, I'm introducing Introduction 1237, which would require our city agencies to ask for veteran status on all application forms for social services. By having our city agencies ask the obvious questions, the city can do more to intervene sooner when a veteran is at the precipice of a mental health crisis. We want our city agencies talking to each other, and I'm confident we as a city will be able to do more for our veterans by passing this bill. I want to thank the Speaker and Councilmember Lee for including my legislation on the next stop of the mental health roadmap. Our veterans deserve our best, and I ask everyone to sign on to this important piece of legislation. Thank you, and happy Veteran Appreciation Month.
Thank you. We'll now go to Councilmember Lee, followed by Councilmember Bottcher.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, Majority Leader, and colleagues. I'm proud to be introducing legislation alongside Councilmember Hudson today that would address food insecurity for our city's older adults. Intro 1240 would expand the city's home-delivered meals program to 365 days of operation. Currently, the program only delivers on weekdays, leaving our city's most vulnerable to fend for themselves on weekends and holidays. This has been an especially difficult issue in a district like mine, which is a transit desert. Other programs like City Meals only partially fill those weekend gaps and often at much lower reimbursement rates to providers. I hope you can support me in this effort to do right by the 20% of New Yorkers, 1.7 million of our family members, friends, and neighbors who are 60 years and older. Thank you so much, and I hope you sign on to this legislation.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Councilmember Bottcher, followed by Councilmember De La Rosa.
In early 2021, the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act was passed, and this was long overdue, putting an end to the harsh prison sentences and establishing a legal industry that would generate revenue, prioritizing marginalized communities so that those who suffered the most would be the first to reap the benefits. But the state dragged its feet on issuing retail licenses. No licenses were issued for a year and a half, and then it was only 36 for the entire state. Because of this foot dragging and the lack of enforcement mechanisms in the law, thousands of unlicensed marijuana stores have opened across the state, at least 1,500 in New York City. These illegal stores undermine the licensed recreational marijuana market, and they pay no taxes, depriving impacted communities of promised community reinvestment funds. The products sold in these stores are unregulated, and perhaps most troublingly, more and more teens and minors are purchasing cannabis from these unlicensed stores, often before or after school. The law has been adjusted many times, but it's not working. The stores are not being shut down. So today at the City Council, Councilmember Keith Powers is introducing legislation. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor, a prime co-sponsor of this legislation that will introduce a new category to the nuisance abatement law that allows the city to padlock these businesses. This would also create a new category for selling to anyone under the age of 21. This is necessary to getting a handle on this issue and closing these illicit stores and allowing a legal, fair market to get up and running. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember. A fantastic bill, if I do say so myself. We'll now go to Councilmember De La Rosa, and we'll hear from Councilmember Aviles afterwards.
Thank you so much, Majority Leader. I am proud to introduce our Construction Justice Act, Intro 1236 today. A $40 wage and benefit floor will lift all tides for all workers in our city and ensure those that build our renowned skyline will be able to afford to live in it. This intro includes a community hiring aspect to bring the subsidies used for affordable housing to the hands of those who need it the most and are often forgotten, like immigrant workers, women workers, justice affected persons, and people who live in Black and brown communities across our city. I want to thank the broad coalition that has come together to support this legislation, including our labor partners in the Laborers and Local 79, in addition to our colleagues, Councilmember Francisco Moya, who laid the foundation for this bill, and our speaker and the legislative staff for partnering with us to help get this introduced. This bill will build generational wealth and a new middle class, and I'm encouraging colleagues who haven't done so already to please sign on. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Councilmember Aviles.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment and extend my congratulations to colleague Councilmember Shahana Hanif for passing Intro 569 today, of which I'm a proud co-sponsor. While our city, which has been built on the back of immigrants, still has a long way to go to make sure our new arrivals are treated with dignity, today we can at least be sure that our immigrant workforce will have access to information regarding their rights on the job, a step towards vastly improving working conditions for those often exploited immigrant working class folks. Faced with wage theft, discrimination, hazardous working conditions, to name a few, which our immigrant workers constantly face, I look forward to seeing the impact of 569 on communities like mine, which is a majority immigrant community. By being given access to information regarding their rights in their native language, our city's workforce will be given a fighting chance to improve their livelihood for themselves and their families, thus allowing our neighborhoods and New York City to prosper. Thanks again to my colleague, Councilmember Hanif, and to everyone who voted in support. Thank you.
It's nice to have colleagues who give you compliments, isn't it? We'll now hear from Councilmember Feliz.
Thank you, Majority Leader. First, I would like to disclose on the record, should have done it earlier,
that I'm an adjunct professor in the CUNY system. CUNY hosts those community college in the Bronx. Second, want to associate myself with the comments of Councilmember Farrah Lewis. Still shaken by the gun violence that we saw in that building. I'm sure many of us saw that video, a father and a son executed in their own building, in their own home. Last year, we had a lot of that in my district. We had, in 48 hours, we had a 13-year-old, 15-year-old, and an 18-year-old losing their lives to gun violence, gun and gang violence, and then literally different groups literally celebrating the gun violence that they had committed against their gang rivals. We must make absolutely no excuses for gun violence. Excuses are usually done to the detriment of already marginalized communities. The carrying of a gun never ends well, so I hope we as a city could do more to not only stop the guns from entering our communities, but also stop people from carrying them, because it is very clear that far too many people are carrying almost like it is no problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember. Do we have anyone else signed up to speak? I do not see anyone. Just a reminder that there's a BLAC meeting in the conference room right after this. And with that, I'll hand it over to Speaker Adrian Adams to close today's stated meeting.
Thank you, Majority Leader. The stated meeting of November 2nd, 2023 is hereby adjourned.